This
Take a
conference will
look.
now be recorded.
Okay, so take small building block and compose them. Okay, so these are the small building blocks of your programming language. We have already seen these things: variables, expressions, statements. We have already seen these things. You will combine them and make your composition. There is certain rule. There are certain rule defined in Python of how can you combine them. So you must adhere by those rules if you want to combine them. Okay. So you see, we have already seen print statement. If you want to get an output of 17 plus 3, you see, it will give you 20. So there is no problem with this. It will give you 20. But suppose you want to print output. Suppose you want to print output of RAM plus V, and all, and both these are strings. So you will get an output as RAM V. Now you know that these are strings and I can combine strings and hence I can get this. But if on the other hand you were combining one integer and one string, then you know that what could be the result. We have seen that when string combined with integer, what is the result? Okay. Now, the last thing before we introduce you with the concept of function is comments. So this is a very simple concept. Anytime you have written a very huge program or code, what happens that you generally forget that what you have done here or what was the part you have done before this. To remember this stuff, you basically do a very simple thing. You put comments in your codes, and that is done with this symbol in Python. With this symbol in Python, you comment. So you write here that what actually you are doing before this, what we are going to do later on, and if some description you want to put on, you will put on some description here. Okay. So you see, this is the use of this comment thing. So it helps you to understand your program if you are going to revisit this thing again in the future. So we are not in fact going to waste our time on these things. Let's jump into something which is very important from the point of programming language, which is function. Okay, so let's understand first that what a function is, and then we'll understand its usability, and then we'll understand its importance. Okay. So actually you have already used so many functions, but you are not very much familiar with its construct. That's as simple as that. What kind of functions we have used before? So we have used type function. Type is a predefined function. But before that, let's understand what is a function. So function is a name. This is nothing. Function is a name that you give to few lines of codes. So suppose you have written 5 lines of codes. Instead of seeing them one by one, you have given it a name, right? You have given it a name. This name is called function, nothing else. So one of the built-in functions that you are not going to write on your own, but it is pre-written in the Python, is type. So you have seen already the use of type. So you use type function whenever you want to understand the type of a particular value. So I know that once I'll put this in the Python and hit control enter, I'll get string, right? So what this type function is doing, it is giving you an output of the thing that you have put inside the function, right? So type is already a function that you have been using. Just understand that you have not made this function. This function was made by those people who have developed Python. That means it is a built-in function in Python, right? Moment you download Python, you already get this function. So this is a built-in function in Python. So we'll see that there are 2-3 kinds of function we'll encounter. First will be built-in function, that we'll understand that this was the function which were there in Python always. So once you have downloaded it, it will be there in your system. Second will be the functions that you will use from different modules. Okay. So again, these will be function that you will not be writing. In fact, somebody else has written this function. You will borrow these functions from them, And the third and the most important will be the type of functions which you are going to write. I'll call them additional functions that you are going to write for your own purpose. So we'll be using these three functions today in the class. First type of function already we have seen. These are called type function. These are the built-in functions. For example, type functions, then conversion functions. For example, if you want to convert a number, a string which is actually a number, into int again, that is integer again, you actually force this to become an integer and it will become 32. So we have already seen that if you put quotes around something, that is string. But now using int function, which is a built-in function in Python, you have converted this string into an int. So that is the next function that we are going to introduce you to. Okay, now what is this called? The thing that you put inside a function is called argument. Okay, and the result that you get from a function is called result only. These are the two terms. Just I'm introducing you these terms to you. That's as simple as that. Do not get bothered into it. Okay, so whatever the input you put inside a function, right, that is called argument, and the result that you get is called result. Okay, that's as simple as that. Now I have talked about two types of functions, built-in function. I said that we are going to talk about three kinds of function. The first will be built-in function. Second will be the functions that we will be borrowing from modules, and third will be an additional function that we are going to write on our own, right? So under built-in functions, I told you that we have already seen type function, right? The second function that we are going to see is, say, int function that I have already introduced you. Third could be string function. So what these functions are, these functions are already in your system. You only use them and you have not written them. You are simply using them. So you see here, I am converting a string into an integer. You see here, if I'm forcefully trying to convert hello into an integer, which is a string, you know this is a string, already a string. I want this string to be an integer. Is this possible? So the Python will give you an error. No, this is not possible. Okay, great. So built-in functions are not very difficult to understand. Why? Because it is built in, very beautifully built in. You are simply using them. Okay. Now come to the second type of function that I call the functions that you'll be borrowing from some of the modules. Okay. So there would be some functions which you would be borrowing from some of the modules. So you see what I'm borrowing some functions from mathematical modules of the Python. So suppose you want to evaluate log 1 by x. Okay, how you are going to evaluate it? Whatever value you will put for x, first what will happen, that this thing inside the parenthesis will be evaluated, and then whatever is the value, say it is y, then log of y will be calculated in mathematics normally. I mean, this is the common procedure that you follow in mathematics, right? The same procedure will be followed in Python also. So let's borrow this function, log function, from mathematics library. Okay, so this math library, we are going to borrow this log function. Okay, so a module is, so do not get confused with this word module. Module is nothing but this is a collection of so many related functions. So once you are saying that I am calling maths module, you are simply saying that I'm borrowing a lot of functions from this library of functions. Okay, so this is also very simple, but the difference is that every time you are going to use these function like log function, sine function, first of all you will call this module, and then you will specify that I am using log function from maths module by indicating, by putting a dot and then writing log, and then putting these value there, right? So why I'm always specifying that from where I'm using log function, this is important because it may happen that log function could have been defined in some other module. Say it may be defined in stat module, right? So if you are using log function from there, you are never very sure that the log function that is written in math library and stat library is written in the same way. It could happen that there are some differences in the algorithm of finding out the log when they are written in stat library and math library. So people could have made some difference, or those people who have written these functions in math library and log library, they could have made some distinction between the two. So you must always specify that from where you are using this log function. This will actually help you also to understand the structure of Python. Okay, so these are the two basic functions that I have introduced you today. Very simple one: built-in function and the function that we are going to borrow from different modules by specifying them. Now we'll jump into something very interesting where we are going to write our own function. Okay, so that's where the fun actually starts. Okay, so far uh, so far actually we have used function, but now we are writing our own function. So pay attention to this. The definition of the function I have already given you. That function is the name of a sequence of statements. Okay, now now this operation is specified as a function. The function we have been using so far have been defined for us, and these functions have been hidden. Now this statement is important, right? This statement goes into making the advantage of writing a function. Okay, so whenever you are going to use type function for built-in function, you remember, you specify, you ask Python that give me the type of int, and it tells you that it is integer, right? You don't know that how this function was written. That is what this says, that how the function is defined is actually hidden from you. No one, you actually don't know that how this function was written. Only those people who have written this function in the Python, they know that how this function was written. So the advantage is this, that since you don't know how this function was written, you do not need to bother about it. You simply know its functionality. Okay, so that is what you will also do when you will write your function. You will write your function once, say this is the function you have written. Now you will never bothered about what is written inside. You will simply use this function. Okay, great. Now I'll introduce you with the concept of structure or syntax of the function, and then we'll take few examples and practice it. Okay, okay. So you see how I'm defining function. So take it like this. In the code, this is my first line, this is my second line, this is my third line, and on the fourth line I define my function. So why I'm putting def? Because this is not the normal line of the code like the previous three line. Whenever I write def, Python understands that I'm going to define a function here. So first you always need to put def so that Python can understand that I'm defining a function. Second thing that you'll write after def is the name of the function. So whatever name you want to give it, you can give it that name. Suppose you want to write a function for calculation of mean, so you can give it name mean. You want to write a function for calculation of median, you'll write a function, you can give it a name median. So likewise, any name you can give to your function. For the very general purpose, I have written name, but name here refers to the name that you want to give it to your function. Then the function will take few parameters. Now, moment I have written parameters, you have seen that earlier I have used the term argument, right? Earlier I have used the term argument. Now I am using the term parameter. We'll make the distinction between the two, but for the time being, just assume that these are the two words in which deals with the definition of function. So parameter deals with the definition of the function, and argument deals with the usability of the whenever you are going to use the function. So argument will come into picture when you are going to use this function that you have already defined, and parameter will come into picture when you are going to define your function. If the concept of parameter and argument is not very clear to you, hold on for a second. Moment we'll progress, we'll see that how we can understand it. It's very simple. Okay, but maybe for the time being it may happen that you might not have understood or you may be a little confused, but don't worry. Okay, now just understand what we are doing here. So in mathematics, how you write a function, say fx is a function as fx is equals to x square, right? So whatever is written here, we'll make a correspondence here. Don't worry. We are going to, if you have very little knowledge of mathematics, very little elementary knowledge, you will understand how we are going to write function in Python. So fx is the name of the function that I have given to this particular thing, right? So that is the name of the function. But when you write the name of the function, you also write that on what all things this function is going to operate. So those will be called parameters of the function. So if this is a bivariate function, you will write x and y, and this could be as simple as x plus y, right? This could be as simple as x plus y. So if you are going to use two parameters in your function, so you will specify here x and y. If you are going to use only one parameter, then you will only write x. So you always have to write the parameters of the function that you are going to use in your function. And then all these things that you are going to do with your parameters, you write in the body of the function. So I have written it as statements. So you are going to write all your logics here, right? You will write all your logics here. So once you have defined your function, so you put definition, then the name of the function, then the parameters of the function, and then what your function is going to do, you write it here. This is as simple as this when it comes to defining a function in Python. Okay. So you can make up any name that you want to put for your function that you have created. That's this point, as simple as this, except that you cannot use the keywords of the Python. So this is what I have already introduced you with. So the keywords of the Python must never be used. If you are going to use the keywords of the Python, I have already told you that what are the keywords of the Python. Keywords of the Python are those things which defines the structure of the Python. So if you will use the keywords of the Python, Python will be confused and it will throw an error for you. So do not use the keywords. Give it a name, a random name, whatever you want, but follow the procedure of giving it a name, right? So naming procedure already we have discussed that it could be anything. It could be combination of characters and integers, but it cannot start with integer. Follow those procedure for your convenience and always try to give a meaningful name so that whenever you are calling your function, you understand that what actually you are going to do. Okay. Okay. Yes, and this point is very important for the beginners. The thing is, you see, I have written my first line of code here, second line of code here, third line of code here. Suppose this is my fourth line in which I am defining the function. Okay, now you see all these lines started from here, but then after I have defined my function, whenever I'm going to write my logic of my function, it must come with an indentation. So you see this gap, right? This is indentation. So what happens that when you define your function and you put these columns and you hit enter, you'll come here only. Python will automatically prompt you to this position. It will not put you to this position because Python after this colon understands that you are going to write the logic of a function. Okay, and since you are going to write the logic of a function, it's incorrect syntax to start from here because Python then not understand that you are defining a function. Only if you put the logic of the function with this indentation, Python will understand very clearly that this is the definition of the function and this is the logic of the function. That means this is the thing that you are going to do in your function. This is the thing that the function is going to do. So put this indentation always, otherwise you're define otherwise whatever function you have written will be an incorrect function. Okay, so the syntax of the function is as simple as this. Now we'll try to see the usability of the function and that will make it much clear. Okay, example of new self-written function. Okay, so you have already used print function, which is a self-defined function in Python. Okay, this is a built-in function in Python. So sorry, print is not a self-defined function. Print is a built-in function in Python. That means you are not going to write this function. In fact, this function was already written by those people who have designed Python. Okay, so as we have said, whatever we put inside print, we get the same output. Correct? Yeah. Now what will happen if I don't put anything inside print? This is very logical. This is not confusing at all. I have not put anything inside print. So it will print me a null line. That means there will be nothing inside that line. This will print me a void line. Okay. So if you have not put anything inside function print will give you a void line. Now we are going to use this property of print to define our function. So first function that we are going to define is very simple. The function is like this. We are going to define a function. Remember the syntax. We need to put def, then the name of the function. So the name of my function is new line, and here I need to put argument either x, y, or x and y both, or whatever, or how many parameters you want to put. You can put it here, right? Okay. So I have not put, just notice that instead I have not put anything inside the definition of my function. I have not put any parameter when I'm defining my function. This could be possible. You might have seen few functions which do not take into any parameter inside it. Suppose I am defining a function in mathematics which is equals to 3. So this function does not depends on anything. So this is a constant. So it is possible in Python also that I can define a function which does not take into account any parameter. Okay, fine. I have not taken into account any parameter. Now what is the next thing that I'm going to do? I'm going to write, I have written print again with nothing inside it. So I know that what this is going to do. This is going to print me a line in which there is nothing written. Okay. So technically I have defined a function new line in which the logic of the function is coming with an indentation, this gap, and I am going to print a void line. Okay, now we'll try to understand the usability of this function. Okay, so suppose I have written print first line, print your first line with this parenthesis. Then I have written new line, and then I have written second line. So after this class, my suggestion is that you go back to your Jupyter notebook and write whatever is written here. So print first line, then use your function that you have defined, and then print second line. So whenever you are going to use this function, if you run all these three lines together, what you are expecting as output? The output would be first line, then void line, and then second line, right? Yes. So you have already seen that how we are going to use one function. Now I'm going to suppose instead of leaving one line, I want to leave three lines as void lines. So first line, then three lines as void lines, and then second line. So this is the way that you can write it. You are right, you are printing first line which will be printed here, then you are calling your function which will print you a void line, then again you are calling a function which will print you a void line, then again you are calling a function which will print you a void line, and then you are printing your second line, right? So this is, so what I'm saying here, I'm doing repetition. I'm repeating repetitively calling my function, right? Yes. But you might have seen in mathematics also that whenever you define a function, you can use another function inside it, right? So function of f So technically I'm doing this thing. So f is a function of y and y is a function of z. I can do this thing in mathematics, right? The same concept you can use in Python also. So you are defining a three-line function. So I'm going to do this thing only, right? But here I am defining a three-line function. Inside the function, I'm using these one-line function. Now, you see, instead of writing all this thing, I'll write only this thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 line got reduced into 3 lines. So I'll write my print first line, I'll write my leave 3 lines, and I'll write my print second line. What will happen? That first line will be printed. Leave 3 lines mean this function will be used. This function is going to print 3 void lines to me. And at the end, second line will be printed, right? So these two things are going to do the same thing, but once you have defined this function, this reduces your effort, right? So you are going to write only 3 lines instead of 5 lines. So here we have we have used two concepts. First is you can repetitively call your function, you can repeat your things. So I have used this function 3 times. And second is you can use one function under the another function that we are doing here. That's the property of function, right? Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm doing the simple thing here. Instead of defining my all these functions, you could have used original statement of print void to leave 3 statements altogether, right? So I have defined my function leave 3 lines. I have print void 3 times, and then I have, and yeah, so that's it. I have defined my function 3 lines. I have printed 3 void lines, and now I'm going to use this function. So so how I'm going to use this? I'll write print first line, I'll call this 3 line function, and then I'll print second line, right? So this will be this will be equally good as these two functions. No problem with this, right? So what I'm trying to show you here is that from the very basic predefined functions in Python, you can make very elaborate functions. Okay, all right. Yeah. Now the another thing that we must emphasize here is not indented here. What is this? This I'm saying that suppose this is the complete code of your Python. These are the complete code that you have written in Python. Now notice the difference. Moment you are defining a function, you must write define here, right? Put definition here. So you are defining a 3 line function. You are printing these 3 void lines, right? But all these things inside the function is coming with an indentation. And then again, when you are outside this function, you are not indented. Your codes are not indented. You are back to the normal stage. That tells Python that now you are outside the function. That is as simple as that. Anything after definition and it is indented, that tells that you are still doing or writing your code for the function only. Moment you are not indented, you tell Python that I'm not inside the function anymore, I'm outside the function, right? Okay. So now we'll try to understand the usability of the function. Okay, and then we'll see that why defining a function is going to be very, very important. So these 2 points we have already covered, that in function you can repeat your procedure, and you can call one function inside the another function. That point is very clear. Now what is the worth of a function? If we understand this, so it may happen that you will understand the usability of the function also. So first line is just the definition of the function. There is nothing very fancy about it. But the second and third points are very important. Second point tells you that functions simplify the program by hiding the complex codes. So suppose this was the first line of your code, this was second line of your code, this was third line of your code, this was fourth line of code, and then a huge code, say 1000 lines thereafter, right? But what happens that this 1000 line you are going to use the same, you are going to do the same thing again and again in your programming. So because you are going to use the same logic, you are going to repeat your procedure again and again inside your programming. It's logical that you give it a name. So suppose I have given it a name f for function, f1. Okay, let's make it f1. Now because you have written it once, right, you can simply use your logic next time. So suppose there are few more lines and then you need to repeat this procedure again. So you do not need to line this 1000 line again. Instead of that, you will simply call your function here, f1, right? You will simply call your function here, and you will see that instead of this 1000 line, there will be only one line. Okay. So if this 1000 line procedure was to be used 5 times in your complete program, that will reduce to 1005 line instead of those 5000 lines. So second usability of the function tells you this only, that it reduces the complexity of your code and it reduces or eliminates the repetitive codes. These are the two very important use of function. But from my point of view, I have not written it here, but from my point of view, it is also very important to understand it this way. Suppose you are going to use this 1000 line of logic again and again in your complete program. So next time you are going to write it, you will have to be equally cautious when you are going to write this another 1000 line which you have written it already. Because why you need to be cautious? Because this is coding thing, so you can make mistakes, some kind of logical mistakes, some kind of semantic mistakes, some kind of mistakes you can always make. So the chances of doing error will increase if you are not using function. And on the other side, if you are using function, you write it once with your full focus, get it verified that whatever you are doing is completely correct, name it as f1, and then simply use it. That will help you reducing the error that you might that you can make in your programming, and it will reduce your effort and everything. So in that way, from my point of view, function is also very important if you want to reduce error, because you'll have to be cautious only once, remain full cautious, write one function, and then use it as many times as you want, because you are very sure that what you have written inside the function is correct. Okay, great. Now that was all about defining function, using it, and all those things. But if you do not understand this flow of execution in Python, it will happen that you will make mistakes. And moment you will understand the flow of execution in Python, you will appreciate the applicability of the function. So I'm not going to read out these bullet points. Instead, I'm going to give you an example to explain the flow of execution in Python. So let's take this example like this. So this is my first line of the function. Sorry, this is my first line of the code. This is my second line of the code. This is my third line of the code. Now I'm defining my function here. So suppose I have defined my function as mean. I have given it name mean. Inside mean, I say that you put your data set X. Now I have written the complete code that how mean is going to be calculated. Okay. Now I came out of the function. You see, I am indented here. Moment I am outside this indentation, you see that Python will understand that I am no longer inside the function. Right? Again, I am writing my code. Now I have just defined my function here. Understand? I am not using it. Now I am going to use my function. So I write mean here, and then I put my data set y here. Python will give me mean. Okay, it will give me it will find out the mean for all the data points inside the variable y. Okay, inside this y list. So y can have few data points, right? Python will give me the mean of all these things here. Now I'm going to explain you the flow of execution, that how everything will be executed in Python. So the flow of execution will be something like this. This line will be executed, no problem. Yeah, this will be executed. This line will be executed, yes. This line will be executed, correct. Will this line executed? The answer is anything inside the function will not be executed, but the function name and the definition name of the function will be read. So Python will read this, but Python is not going to execute anything inside the function. Instead, moment Python understand that this is where I'm defining a function. After executing these three lines and this, Python will jump to this line. It will leave everything that you have designed inside the function as it is. It will not even touch it. So even the errors, anything that you are doing inside the function, Python is least bothered about it. It will leave it. Simply it will ignore it. So after these lines and this, Python will jump here. Python will execute this line. It will execute this line. It will execute this line. It will execute this line. Now when you are going to call this function, Python will go back to your function, and then it will substitute y for x here, and then it will execute everything inside the function, right? So you understand it, that how execution happens. So again, suppose after mean again you have written one line, another line, another line, and then you are going to call your function again. Suppose you have called your function here mean. You have given another data set to calculate the mean. What Python will do, after finding the mean here, Python will execute this line, this line, this line. Moment you are here, Python will take z here, take it here, substitute here, and again will execute all these lines. So what is our crux? The crux is this, that the time when you define the function, Python don't use it. Python simply leave it for the further use. Python do not execute it. But whenever you are calling the function, so at the definition I said that Python is not going to evaluate it, but when we are calling the function, Python will substitute these y's instead of these x, okay, and then execute these things. So everywhere where there will be x, Python will replace it by y, and then it will execute all the logic inside that function. Okay, yeah. Now you have understood the concept of execution of the functions also very correctly, and hence this is the right time to tell you about the arguments and parameters. So parameters are general terms. Whenever you are going to define your function, whatever you put inside that is called parameter. And whenever you are going to use the function, whatever you put inside there is called arguments. Okay, so this is basically the definition of, this is how I have defined arguments and parameters. But you remember I said you that parameters are very general thing, very general thing. We'll see that what do you mean by very general thing, and when you put argument inside, what we actually mean by that. Okay, so we'll try to understand this thing with an example, and we'll see that we can make sense out of it. Okay, so suppose I have written a function twice. Okay, in the print twice function I have written, so I have defined a function print twice in which I have written anything. So anything is my parameter here, right? What this print twice function is going to do, I am writing this function as print twice. So the logic of this function is I'm asking Python to print whatever is the parameter 2 times. Okay, so I have defined function print twice in which I have passed an argument anything. I'm asking Python that whatever argument is given inside my, whatever is parameter given inside my function, I'm asking Python to print it 2 times. That is as simple as that. So now I'm going to make use of this function. Okay, so here I am defining my function, and now see I'm using this function print twice. So once you are inside your Jupyter notebook, you'll see that there is little difference in the name of the function. Please correct it. I write it as print twice with this underscore and this is small t. Okay, now I have passed argument here. This is argument, right? And this is parameter. So I have passed my argument here. What Python will do? Python will print the spam word 2 times. Now remember I said that inside the function, when I'm defining the function, I'm passing an argument, and argument is a very general thing. To understand this concept of general thing, I'm taking this example. So you see here I'm calling this function and I'm giving it a string, and I'm asking Python to print it twice for me. Here I am calling this function again, and I'm passing the argument which is integer. So here I pass the argument which is string. Here I'm passing the argument which is integer, and I say that 5 get printed 2 times. That is what this function was supposed to do, right? But the noticeable thing is this parameter was so general that it did not differentiate between string and integer. It did, if possible, the following logic, that is printing it 2 times for both, either it is string or integer. So it did not make any difference. I think I could explain the meaning of this general term very well here. So next time, if you are going to put some float inside, you will see that this float will be printed twice, right? So that's very simple. That's very simple but very powerful thing. What is this? That inside the function, the parameter that you are going to pass inside, that is a very general thing that will take any value that you will put inside when you are calling the function, right? But it will do the further calculation only when it is possible to do so. If it is not possible to do so, you will see that it will print an error message. Okay, so let's move on and see what we mean by that. So you see, uh, you see uh, the concluding thing. Actually, I am trying to put last 10 minutes for your question and answer session. So let's see how much we can cover inside the function today. So next point that I want to iterate is rules of composition inside a function. So the rules of composition inside the function, you remember what is composition? Composition is the complex of variables, expressions, and and few other things, like whatever are the basic things in Python. You make a composition of it and then you evaluate it, right? Yes. So the print twice function we are going to call here, and we are going to see that is this composition working here. So my print twice function was taking one argument. It was defined on one parameter, so it will take one argument. So my argument is spam multiplied by 4. So you remember, when a string get a multiplication sign, what does it do? It repeat it times as many times it was multiplied. So spam before this function itself will be evaluated will become spam. And then print twice function repeats or prints it twice. That is all. Okay. So what we understood is this: when you are going to put an argument inside the function, you can have that argument in form of some kind of composition also. So the another example will make you much clear. So inside print twice, if you are going to put a math function and then you are going to evaluate another function, that is cost function, and then you are going to put a constant. So I'm going to put a constant here, then I'm going to evaluate that cost of that constant, and then I'm going to evaluate, and then I'm going to perform the operation of this print twice function. So whatever will be the value here will be printed twice. Okay, correct. Now this is a very interesting concept again. So the variables and parameters are local when you define a function. Just to give you an example, suppose I want to concatenate two terms, two values. Let's say we want to concatenate two values. So you remember one string, when we put plus operator within two strings, say this is string 1 and this is string 2, what do you get? You get string 1 and string 2 in Python, right? So plus operator defined on strings actually join two strings, but the same plus operator when defined on ints give you mathematical summation. Now here again you will understand what do we mean by generality of the parameters, and what do you and how these things are working. So I am defining a function in which I am asking function to concatenate the things that are inside my function. So I have passed two arguments, part 1 and part 2. Sorry, I have passed two parameters. Remember, I'm defining my function. So all these things will be called parameters. So I have put in two parameters when I'm defining my function, and you see there is a mistake here. This must come with an indentation. So it will be somewhere here. Start your cat from here. What cat is doing? Cat is adding these two things that are going inside the function. Great. And now this will also come with an indent. This print will start from here. And then you write print twice cat. So cat is this, right? What cat is doing? Cat is adding these two, part 1 and part 2, right? And then you are going to use your print twice function. You remember you have already defined print twice. So whatever is added will be printed twice. Okay. So just to give you an example, suppose I'm now making the use of this function. So what I'll say, I'll call this function cat twice, right? Suppose I passed two arguments inside it, 2 and 2. Now let's see what will happen. Once I have called this function, Python will go here, substitute instead of part 1 2, and here it will substitute 2 again, and then follow the logic. So what will be the value of cat here? 2 plus 2. So what will become the value of 4? What will be the value of cat? 4. And now I'm asking Python to print twice. So cat will be passed here, and what will be the final outcome? 4, 4, because it will be printed twice. Correct? Now instead of passing value 2, suppose I pass A and B. So part 1 will take value A and part 2 will take value B, right? What will happen? What will be the value of cat? A plus B, which will be A plus B, which will be what? AB, right? And when you are printing it twice, what will be the final outcome? AB, AB. So you see, This is how I'm talking about the generality of the function. So whatever is possible for that particular kind or type of value, Python will operate it as it is. So if for the plus sign for strings means concatenate it, so it will concatenate it. But if plus sign for integer means adding it, it will add it. Great. But this slide was not about generality of the function. This slide was about the locality of the variables. So what do I mean by locality of the variable is this. So this cat variable that I'm going to define inside my function is the property of this function. If you come outside this function and print cat, it will give you an error because this function was only have any meaning inside the definition inside this function only. If you want to call it when you come outside this function, it will fetch you an error. So that is what I mean by locality of variable and parameter. So anything, whether this thing or anything which is the property of the function, if you call it outside the function, when you are outside the function, if you want to call it, you'll get an error. Okay. So I think only 7-8 minutes are left. If you want to put up your doubts, please put up your doubts. We'll try to answer your doubts, and then we'll see if anything possible we can repeat it. If you want me to repeat anything, you can put that thing in the chat box, and we'll see, and we'll try to handle it. Okay, so Deepak wants to see an example where in a function you are multiplying two you are multiplying two integers. Okay, so you want to see a function, so it's very simple. Define a function def, let's give it a name mult, put it two parameters inside the function, x and x and y. Put a colon here. Inside the function, define another variable, and then multiply x into y, and then print z. Okay, so you have defined your function here. This is as simple as this. Now when you are going to use this function, you will simply write, you'll call this function mult, and then you'll pass two parameters, say 2 and 2, and just hit control enter, and you'll get 4. That is how you can define a function wherein you are multiplying two integers. Okay, now Vishwadeep has asked that isn't 1 plus 1 should be a plus b should be a plus b instead of ab. So remember what we say, that when plus operator operates on int and operates on string, it operates in different ways. So plus operator when operates on integer, it gives you the mathematical summation of the two. But if plus operator you are putting over string, right, it simply concatenates, means simply join these two things, so it will give you ab. Hence the previous function that we're talking about here, I think he's talking about, yeah, this part. So if I'm putting a plus b, I'll get ab because these two are strings, a and b. Okay, any more doubt? If anyone is having, please put up your doubt, else we are going to close the session for today. Okay, so that was a very interesting topic inside Python, wherein you learned today how to define function, and you saw the usability of the function, you see that once you have to apply your head a lot when you write, when you are going to write a very correct logic of the function. But next time, if you are going to, if you are going to use your function, you simply call it, and it gives you huge advantage over usability of the function. Okay guys, it looks like we are done with the concepts and understanding of today's class. If still you want to ask me anything, you can always put your comment on the YouTube channel there, where we'll upload this video very shortly. You can, if you have missed out on any part, you can revisit YouTube channel and see it there. The link for the same will be forwarded to you as well. And still, if you are little confused, or if you have any problem understanding any concept, you write your comment here. I'll definitely revert back to you. I'll get back to you as quickly as possible, and that will be a lot of fun to understand Python in that way. Okay, take care till the next time. Thank